Before I embarked on my healing journey, or what most people would now call shadow work or doing the inner work, I used to ask myself this question more often than not. And that question was, are you going to spend the rest of your life caring what everybody else has to say about you, or what others think of you, or even what others feel about you? And the reason I used to have this thought permeating in my consciousness seemingly all day long, every single day, was because this was my North Star. This for me was my basis or my foundation for life. I used to view life from a perspective of, if I don't please the people around me, I am not going to get my needs met, right? That was the entire ideology that I had. And so, of course, I care what people thought about me, because that was an indicator for me as to whether or not I was doing my job, right? As a people pleaser, you live in a world where you are constantly looking to have people affirm you via the things that you do for them or the way in which you show up. So you will wear a mask when necessary, which is usually all the time, because no two people are alike, and you're trying to somehow fit into the narrative of any of these given individuals at any given point in time. And so I really came to this point where I had to start asking myself, is this worth it? Is it worth living a life where you are constantly obsessed with who is thinking about you, what they're saying about you, how they think about you? And it wasn't just, people are close to me, family, friends, acquaintances, whatever it may be, people already in my life. This was something I felt towards all of life and everybody. It didn't matter who you were. I felt as if I had some sense of obligation to please you in order to get my own needs met. And so once I really started to face this question, and I really had to dig deep and just to look at it objectively, the answer I had was obviously no. Nobody wants to spend their entire life dwelling in that state. However, if we're not consciously and intentionally doing something about it, we will, right? I know that without a shadow of a doubt. I've got more clients and consultation students and people in my courses and even followers on social media that have told me that it took them 40, 50 years, some people 60 years, in order for them to realize, or in order for them to, I guess, come to this place where they were finally sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they were willing to drop the perception of others. Now, getting into letting go of the caring aspect of what people think about you, say about you, feel about you, we first have to get to the root of the issue, right? The root of the issue has to do with a feeling of inadequacy or unworthiness. When we feel that we're not deserving or we're not enough as we are, we start to dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And when we find nothing there, we start to go externally. And we go further and further and further and further until hopefully at some point you realize that you'll never find it out there. And what you were seeking was always with you. You didn't actually have to find it within yourself. You just have to recognize it. But before that point even comes to base, right? Before you even come to terms with that truth, you're seeking it out there. You're looking for the worthiness out there. You believe that somebody else has your worthiness. And most of us are raised with this mentality or this ideology, this destructive programming, that it is other people's jobs to celebrate you, other people's jobs to validate you, other people's job to meet your needs, right? Before we get into a relationship, we think to ourselves, who can meet my need best? Who can I go to in order to get my needs met? And so when we are still coming from this place, we're not able to recognize that the true problem is not people's perception, but it is why we care so much about their perception. Why is it that we care so much in the first place? And the answer is because we believe that we can only find our worthiness, our validation, our enoughness, or that sense of enoughness through other people. And I'm here to tell you that is inaccurate, that is false, that is a complete lie. As a matter of fact, the more you seek it out there, the more you will be deprived of it. The more you quote unquote find it out there, the more you are deprived of it. If I'm constantly looking outside of myself for indicators as to who and what I should be, as to how I should act, how I should go about life and expressing myself, if I'm looking out there for those answers, I will always be living this inauthentic life. I will always be stripped and void of my authenticity. And when I find myself in that place, that's where I live the unfulfilled life. That's when I start to live as a mere hollow shell of myself as opposed to a true, authentic version. And If you've never lived authentically, you might not actually know the value of living authentically, but you do know the pain of living inauthentically, right? You might not know what's on the other side, but you will know the pain that you've experienced by not being authentic, by not being real, by consistently living your life on this basis of what does everybody else think, feel, and say about me. And so again, when it comes to healing these aspects or coming back to a state of wholeness or recognizing the wholeness within ourselves when it comes to these aspects is really coming into recognition of your intrinsic worth. Now that word intrinsic is key. Intrinsic means it's already in you. It is within you already. It is there. It's a baseline. It's foundational, right? Nobody can take it from you. It will never leave. It will never dissipate. And so once you can recognize that aspect, then you can click things into gear for yourself. Once you recognize that aspect, then you can truly start to step into the space where you are no longer needing the validation of others. Because again, when it no longer has a value to you, when there's no longer a service that is rendered from everybody else's opinions, you will no longer latch onto it. It's just like anything else. When something stops serving you, when something stops doing its job, it's like, if some device or whatever it is in your household is no longer working, you get rid of it and you get a new one. It is no longer serving you, therefore you get rid of it. And so the reason we keep this need for external validation alive is because we believe that it still serves a purpose, which in reality or in truth, it does not. And so it's really as simple as first and foremost acknowledging why it is that we actually care in the first place, right? We don't care just because we care. We care because of what we think the ramifications of not caring are. Well, if I don't people please, then what's my life going to become? How are people going to see me, perceive me, think of me? Therefore, how am I going to get my own needs met, right? And so once we address that aspect, then we can start saying, well, do I want to live a life that way? Do I want to live a life where I continue to believe this lie that I'm unworthy, inadequate, etc.? And if that's a no, which is a no for most people, then it's your job to let that aspect or those belief systems go. And a belief system is nothing more than a thought you continue to think over and over again. And so that premise should let you know automatically that any belief can be changed. So long as you're willing to let go of one, you can adopt another. That's how all your beliefs formed. Yeah, at the earliest stages of life, you continue to hear messaging time and time again, over and over again. Eventually, you got to a place where that finally became a part of who you were or who you believed yourself to be, right? So that's how we really start to peel those layers back. It's about awareness and it's about a willingness and intention and intensity really about it, right? There has to be a full devotion to letting go of what was, because that old identity is going to fight to keep its grounds. It's going to wrestle and tug and pull, wanting to keep you in the very same place. And it is you who has to make the decision to strip yourself away from that very place. So that being said, shameless plug to end this video off. This is my first published book titled Doing Me Guilt-Free. I poured my heart, soul into this thing, but more importantly than that, I believe it is a piece of work that would genuinely shift your space in life, genuinely, right? I didn't write this as like a typical self-help book, just writing regurgitated things. Like these are concepts and ideas that will actually change your life if you implement them. So Doing Me Guilt-Free is the book. Make sure you get yourself a copy. I'm going to leave a description or a link in the description below so you can get yourself one of those. But until then, till the next time, namaste, namaskar.